In the grim darkness of the far future, there are many horrors that stride the galaxy. Orc gargants, tyrannid biotitans, demonic engines, and the god machines of the Adeptus Titanicus. Yet among them, one class of war engine shines with its own unique radiance, not as soulless war machines, but as champions, nobles, knights in both name and spirit, the Imperial Knights. What's up nerds, Zach the Goblin here, and I'm back again with another Warhammer 40k video. This is going to be a new series where I talk about only the things I really like about a given faction, character, etc. For this first one, I was actually originally going to do Leman Russ, since I was quite critical in my 30k versus 40k Space Wolves video, and I wanted to spend some time going over all the cool things about him. And don't worry, that will still most likely be coming in the future. But due to a tenacious, single-minded commenter, I decided to be a man of the people and make the subject for this inaugural video the Imperial Knights. If this series interests you, don't forget to hit that like button so I know to continue it, and let me know who you would like to see me cover in the comments below. Subscribe and hit that bell for more Warhammer 40k content. Without further ado, get in the night, Shinji. It's Goblin time. Okay, first we're going to start with a really quick background before I get into the nitty-gritty of my cool shit bullet points. Oh, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but this video is basically just me ranting and raving about cool Imperial Knights things, so I think this is a good time to warn you that this is going to be a yap session. Okay, so the Night Worlds were originally settled during the first expansion of humans across the galaxy during the Dark Age of technology. And you know, it was a good time. Everybody was like, man, being a human is super cool. We have such cool technology. I mean, we have Men of Iron, we have AI that just does shit for us. Isn't this so cool? But then the Age of Strife and Old Night happened, and everything just kind of went to shit. This led to the Night Worlds, like all of the other human planets, to be cut off and isolated. And during this time, the Knights had to contend with enemies like towering predators, and in some cases, the very planet itself, all without any hope of receiving any outside support. They were truly alone. Due to this, those early Knight pilots became revered as both protectors and rulers. Over the generations, dynasties crystallized into Knight houses, and these worlds regressed into feudal worlds. These are also sometimes called medieval worlds, and they are exactly what you think they are. Think of medieval fiefdoms, and you're not far off. That's essentially what the planet is. Now, why did they regress to specifically feudal times? I've heard it said that potentially this could have been that since they didn't have any outside support or supplies, so they regressed to the bare minimum level of technology to produce parts for the Knights, even if they don't really understand how it works. Another reason would be the Throne Mechanicum. The Throne Mechanicum being the system in which the pilot hooks up to the Knight. And don't worry, we're going to talk more about that later. The Throne Mechanicum had an effect on the Knights' pilots, causing the Knights to feel more protective over the colonies. In addition to that, and this comes from the 8th edition Imperial Knights Codex, whether this was an intentional facet of the Knight STC or some strange ghost in the machine is ultimately irrelevant. The fact was that the longer the Knights fought for their settlements, the more authoritarian their pilots became. Within a few generations, the concepts of chivalric conduct, ritual observance, loyalty, and fealty that the Throne's Mechanicum implanted had indelibly changed the cultural dynamic of the human colonies. The Knight pilots became the first nobles and formed the original knightly houses. Those they protected took on an increasingly servile role, soon adopting the station of a feudal labor class. All of those factors combining into Night Worlds regressing into feudal worlds. And to be fair, a lot of this change started happening before the Age of Strife. Even before they were cut off, they started becoming more conservative and insular. So regardless of the Age of Strife and Old Night, they probably would have ended up this way regardless. But ironically, it was the Night World's very isolationist nature and refusal to adopt new technologies that would protect them from the horrific apocalypse that devastated the rest of mankind. The Night Worlds had burned their psychers as witches, and they had turned away the thinking machines, citing the value of hard labor and a distrust of artificial intelligence. So they were left relatively untouched by the horrors that plagued the rest of mankind. But I digress. The important takeaway here is that Night Worlds are feudal worlds that are centered around and ruled by the noble knight houses. Because the knights were not simply war machines, they were thrones. thrones from which humanity's nobility could both rule and defend. Okay, mentioning thrones, I think, segues us nicely into the first cool thing I want to talk about, the throne Mechanicum. Okay, as stated earlier, the knight houses follow a noble lineage. And when a noble of that knight house reaches their 18th year, they must undergo the ritual of becoming, also sometimes called the rite of becoming. This is a process that binds the young noble to the throne Mechanicum. And this is definitely not without its dangers. It's kind of an all or nothing situation. They are either bound completely with their knight, with it becoming like an extension of themselves, or they die. But yeah, once they're bonded, they are extensions of each other. When the pilot raises their arm, the gauntlet rises. When they grit their teeth, the chainsword bites. There is no delay, no separation. The man and the machine are one. The throne Mechanicum is sort of like the heart and soul of the knight, and has a mind of its own, or rather, has multiple minds of its own. And that is because the throne Mechanicum has the imprinted memories of all of its past pilots, and they all meld into a sort of gestalt entity, with all of the personalities affecting the pilot, who in turn affects the throne Mechanicum itself. Scions who take the throne inherit not only a machine, but ancestral voices that guide and sometimes haunt them. And you have to keep in mind, Imperial Knights are passed down through lineage. So these are the imprinted personalities of the pilot's ancestors, their grandfather, great-great-great-grandmother, great-uncle, etc. Which is super cool because effectively your entire bloodline is cheering you on and helping you out during battle. But as a quick aside, that also has me thinking, have you ever been going to town on your shit and then suddenly you think, damn, I really hope my dead relatives aren't watching me right now, because that's really embarrassing. I imagine that feeling would be multiplied by magnitudes for night pilots. I don't really have anywhere else to go with that. It was just a quick thought I had. But anyways, throne Mechanicum. Yeah, it's really cool because it can be both a blessing and a burden. This can take a big psychological toll on them, with some nobles being crushed by the weight of legacy. I feel like this adds kind of an air of tragic romance to the knights. They're not just killing machines, they are haunted legacies in motion. And this is both a burden, boon, and responsibility for the pilot. For example, if a knight was to turn traitor and fall to chaos, the throne Mechanicum itself can be corrupted. So instead of noble ancestral voices, the pilot hears the whispers of demons. Instead of guidance, they are offered temptation. In Chaos Knights, the throne becomes not a legacy, but a prison, binding the pilot's soul to the warp. The throne Mechanicum gives life to a knight, but in Damnation, it also devours it. But yeah, the throne Mechanicum is just all around a cool concept. These relics of the dark age of technology stand the test of time on these feudal worlds, all the while adding another ghost in the machine for each new pilot bonded to it. For when a knight's reactor roars to life, it is not just steel that awakens, it is a chorus of the dead whispering through the mind of the living. And its might doesn't come from its cannons or its towering frame. No, its true power lies in the throne Mechanicum itself. But that's not to downplay its size and weaponry, which brings us to my next topic. What's cooler than big mechs and big guns? Am I right? I think it speaks for itself, and I could probably just end the section there. But I won't. I'll yap a little bit more about this. I think the Knights hit a very good sweet spot when it comes to big mechs. Because yeah, they're really big, but they're not too big. Let me explain. Let's take the Titans, for example. They're cool too, don't get me wrong, but they're so huge that it almost becomes like hard to quantify. They're so big that whatever you're thinking how big they are, they're most likely bigger than that. But Imperial Knights don't have that problem. They typically stand between 30 and 40 feet or 9 to 12 meters tall, with some exceptions, of course. And I know it seems kind of silly to say that they're only 40 feet tall, but Warlord Titans are, what, around 50 meters or 160 feet tall? It's kind of actually hard to quantify Titan heights because Games Workshop can sometimes have a problem with scale, and their heights aren't really consistent across sources. But the point I'm trying to make is Titans are city-crushing gods of war, commanded by entire crews. But Knights are more personal, bonded to one noble pilot. But that's not to say they're not big and powerful. I think this passage from the 8th edition Imperial Knights Codex really exemplifies how cool and powerful the Knights are. The ground shakes as the Imperial Knights stride to battle. Mechanical giants that typically dominate their surrounding landscape. They cannot conceal their advance, Nor would they. They know well the terror that their coming strikes into the hearts of the foe. Even amidst the smoke and grime of war, their heraldry shines out proudly for all to see. Bright colors and magnificent designs tell of victories won and honors claimed, inspiring hope in their allies and dismay in foes. Even a single knight can level enough firepower to obliterate infantry regiments or reduce armored columns to smoking scrap. Ironstorm missiles streak from their launchers in trails of smoke to detonate amongst the enemy ranks, creating showers of gore. Avenger Gatling cannons spin up to speed, screaming like a chorus of damned souls as they spray hundreds of thousands of rounds into their victims. Volcano lances spit streams of searing death, while thermal cannons reduce their targets to drifting ash. Corrupted fortifications tumble before the knight's monstrous firepower, crashing down in billowing clouds of flame and rockcrete dust. Immense war machines and monstrous beasts alike are blasted limb from limb, while heretic hordes flee, their broken survivors clawing at one another in their desperation to escape the knight's long shadows. Even those who somehow weather the knight's apocalyptic firepower have brought themselves only a temporary stay of execution. Now they must face the knights at close quarters, a prospect that none but the most insane would relish. From the whirling teeth of the enormous Reaper chainsword to the crackling articulated wrecking ball that is the Thunderstrike gauntlet, the knights' melee armaments are more than capable of decapitating an orc gorgonaut or hurling a battle tank through the air like so much worthless junk. Furthermore, the sheer bulk of each knight is a weapon in its own right. Every thunderous footfall crushes armor, flesh, and bone with the ease of an Imperial guardsman stomping on a galley roach. Yeah, so they're just big monuments of destruction. I don't know, I'm a simple man. I see a big mech and my monkey brain just immediately goes, damn, that's cool. And their arsenal is varied and full of iconic weapons. Just a couple, for example, they have the Reaper chainsword, which is a 30-foot chain blade and can cleave tanks in half. They have the Thunderstrike gauntlet, which can crush vehicles and hurl the wreckage as weapons. They have Avenger Gatling cannons, which is just a big-ass Gatling cannon. And they can have thermal cannons, which are essentially just meltas, scaled up to fortress melting levels. And they have different knight variants, so whatever you personally think is cool, they probably have a variant for you. They have gallants, which are more melee focused. They seek honorable duels against rival knights or other large war machines. They have paladins, which is the most balanced knight. They have rapid fire battle cannons while still carrying a chainsword for close combat. Paladins are kind of the embodiment of knightly virtue. They're steadfast, balanced, and noble. There's the Errant, also known as the Bunker Breaker. The Errant wields a devastating thermal cannon and has the role of siege breaker, clearing strong points for Imperial Guard or Space Marines to exploit. And then there's the Dominus class knights, the Castellan and Valiant. They are larger than their brethren and bristling with weapons. The Castellan is armed with volcano lances and plasma decimators, making it a walking apocalypse, while the Valiant is a brutal close-range monster with conflagration cannons and harpoons designed to tear apart war engines and fortresses. These knights are a little more rare and often fielded as the crown jewel of a noble household. There are other variants, but I think I made my point, so I'm gonna move on. But ultimately, to close off this section, big mech with big weapons equals cool. I know, I'm very brave for saying that. Similar to the previous point, this is also fairly simple. Knights are cool, and their chivalrous codes of honor is what elevates them above being just big fighting robots. Their medieval feudalism transposed onto a galactic scale. As stated earlier, there's a lot of feudal parallels. There's noble houses, vassals, oaths to high kings or liege lords. Some noble houses swear fealty to the Imperium, standing as noble champions to the Emperor, and some of them to the Adeptus Mechanicus, trading oaths for the sacred knowledge needed to maintain their throne's Mechanicum. And even the ones who fall to chaos still bend the knee enemy to the dark gods. Their vows corrupted, but still central. These oaths are sacred. To break them is to invite dishonor, to stain the lineage of an entire house. And that's another thing that makes them cool, right? They do not fight because they are ordered to. They fight because their oath demands it, because their honor cannot permit them to do otherwise. Another thing is that the knights place great importance on duels, ritualized combat between equals. They have rivalries that can span generations. One house may challenge another across centuries, each duel adding to the legend. Their quests for honor isn't just a noble virtue, but can also be a detriment to them. On the battlefield, duels can override strategy. You can have gallants charging enemy knights, not for tactical gain, but because their honor demands satisfaction. To slay a rival knight is one of the highest honors, but on the reverse side, to be slain dishonorably can doom a lineage. So their code of honor is kind of a double-edged sword, and I really like things like that. And just like a lot of 40k, knights are a little over the top. They are walking heraldic displays, armor painted in brilliant colors, covered in tilting shields, purity seals, and scroll work. Each banner tells a story, stories of victories, oaths, and bloodlines. When a knight falls, its banner is draped in mourning, carried home like a knightly tombstone. And again, knightly honor is at the forefront here. To deface a house's heraldry is a crime greater than murder to them. Now, some examples of their knightly virtues. We have House Hawkshroud, who are known for answering any call for aid. They consider it dishonorable to ignore a distress signal, even if it means doom. Their knights often die to uphold their honor, but they die as legends. We have House Griffith, berserk glory seekers of close combat. They will hurl themselves into hopeless charges just to duel a worthy foe. Their honor is measured not in survival, but in the spectacle of their victory or death. And then they have House Cadmus, hunters of great beasts. Their nobles consider the slaying of monstrous Xenos not just a duty, but a personal honor right. So there's probably an Imperial Knight house for you. In addition to the ones I already mentioned, there's House Terran, who are loyal to the Imperium, often depicted as the quintessential shining knight. More recently, they fought beside Guilliman's forces during the Indomitus Crusade. Their honor is absolute, their heraldry radiant. We have House Raven, who are bound to the Adeptus Mechanicus. They are a house of pragmatists, famous for their use of ranged firepower. And on the Chaos side, you have noble houses like House Divine, who during the Horus Heresy fell to Slaanesh, transforming them into demon-bound horrors. They embody the tragedy of corruption, knightly glory twisted into debauchery. And with so many houses of differing temperaments, entire houses sometimes feud for centuries over dishonor, creating vendettas that outlive the pilots themselves. Some quick examples being House Terran and House Divine. To this day, House Terran and its allies consider the memory of Divine an open wound, a constant reminder that no oath is unbreakable. Some Terran banners even carry the motto, "We remember Molech," which is the battle during the Horus Heresy where House Divine fell to Slaanesh. We have the rivalries between House Hawkshroud and pretty much everyone. As I said earlier, House Hawkshroud's code of honor demands they answer every call for aid, no matter the risk. And other houses sometimes view this as foolish, abandoning their own holdings to die for strangers. This can create a lot of tensions. Hawkshroud sees other houses as selfish cowards, while others see Hawkshroud as wasteful martyrs. And this can cause rivalries to flare when Hawkshroud knights chastise their peers for failing honor, breeding contempt in return. And there are many more examples, but those are just the two that I wanted to highlight. But yeah, the Imperial Knights Chivalrous Honor Code is really cool. In the Imperium, knights are relics of a lost age, noble champions who stride across the stars as if every battlefield were a tournament of chivalry. Their honor is their weapon, their oath their shield, their banner their soul. And even though the galaxy has long since drowned in blood and darkness, the knights still cling to a dream of glory, even if it consumes them. Imperial Knights have taken part in many important battles throughout the history of the Imperium. As previously stated, during the Horus Heresy, there was the battle on Molech, where loyalist houses fought desperately against Horus's forces. And this also marks House Divine's betrayal, pledging to Slaanesh and turning the tide in Horus's favor. We have the Tyrannic Wars, where House Cadmus and others stand as living legends for their battles against Hive Fleet's Behemoth and Kraken. We had knights hunting Tyrannid Biotitans, with each duel echoing the primal struggle of man versus beast. And even more recently, when Guilliman launched the Indomitus Crusade to save the dying Imperium, knights marched at his side. House Terran in particular stood proudly with Ultramarines. Knights fought in countless war zones, from Hive City walls to demon-infested wastelands. Basically, the point I'm trying to get across is if there's an important battle, the Imperial Knights will probably be there. Or at least, if they have anything to say about it, they're gonna be there. In summary, yeah, the Imperial Knights, like most things in 40k, is really cool. I think what stands out to me is I really like that the Knights embody the duality of Warhammer 40k. Noble ideals crushed under an uncaring universe. I also like that they're anachronisms. Medieval feudalism wrapped in futuristic steel. They're actually quite interesting and unique. Well, as unique as anything in 40k is. Imperial Knights are both tragic and glorious. A reminder that even as humanity drowns in war, it still clings to honor, tradition, and pride. In the galaxy's darkest age, knights stride eternal. Noble yet merciless, beautiful yet terrible, tragic yet glorious. They are mankind's champions. And so, we glaze the Imperial Knights. Thank you so much for staying till the end of the video. Honestly, doing research for this has made me want to read even more about the Imperial Knights. So I think I'm going to be picking up Kingsblade and Knightsblade by Andy Clark in the near future. The former of which was recommended by Memento Mori in my Discord. But yeah, thank you so much for staying till the end. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to hit that like button so I know to continue this series and glaze some more things about Warhammer 40k. Until next time, Goblin out.